Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much, Diana, and all of our AEBG TAPs. I think it's a wonderful service that they're providing to support this community and our ecosystem. I want to also recognize our California Department of Education colleagues, Carolyn Zachary, and all of her colleagues. Could you please stand for a moment? Joining them in partnership are the folks from the California Community Colleges, Javier Romero and his colleagues at the California Community Colleges. If you could stand for a moment. And then, of course, all of you, the leaders of all of our AEBG consortia. You continue to do hard work every day, and it's wonderful to have a little bit of your time today and tomorrow. I thought I'd do a few opening remarks that has to do with the road ahead, because we're all in it together to advance social mobility through our collective workforce mission. And this is where the policy shift has occurred. And as much as, I think there's been a massive change in the adult ed side, I hope that what you'll see through these slides is that there have been a lot of waves of system change that we're experiencing. You'll see it from the community college system. It was our Doing What Matters for Jobs and Economy wave, and then our adult education block grant wave, and now we're having a wave of guided pathway. And so, but as you see, these things build upon each other, and they're actually assets that could help you and look ahead. So again, the context in which we get together is that the state is very concerned about the fact that there are 6.3 million job openings for California, and will Californians get into these jobs? You all know already that the rules of the workplace has changed. 30 years ago, you could come out with a high school degree and be able and have some assurance that you will be able to put food on the table for the family. But the job market is evolving, as you all know, where 65% is going to require some level of post-secondary credential, whether it is a degree, a certificate, an industry-valued credential. And so hence the concern for will Californian get access to the jobs that are opening up. Specifically to where the community colleges and the adult education space, California needs 1 million more associate's degrees, certificates, and industry-valued credentials. So we're looking at that. This is not to say that California doesn't have a need for 1 million more bachelors and above, but this is an equal size gap to our economy, and we're uniquely positioned collectively to deliver those types of credentials for Californians. Of course, the conundrum, and it's funny, like Bob and I just came from Nashville in a collection of southern states that got together to discuss what they're doing for their workforce. And, some of you are in, your backyard is the size of other states, right? So what's so special about California is that we're gigantic, and we have regional economies, all with different labor market needs, different industry sectors that drive those economies. So we need all sorts of pathways. There's 114 community colleges, 325 K-12 county of ed, adult ed providers. And we all collectively need to figure out how to drive workforce outcomes. WIOA-aligned workforce outcomes, moreover. So it's really quite a pattern that we have to bring together. Now, the good news is that because of the collective work we've all been doing, there's been increased attention and investment in the workforce mission across California. Many of you who are from the K-12, I think, just like you, the workforce mission in the community colleges felt like a stepchild amongst all of our missions. But yet, because we began to do the work with ourselves and really think how we do our work, we went from being an afterthought to a policy priority. And we worked from an initial stage of initially having $100 million. Some of those pots of money had been cut in half, right? Some of them had put in flex, so you didn't even have to use it for workforce. all the foundations had walked away from investing in us, such that it's grown from 100 million to 200 million, and with a combination of the work with adult ed to 500 million, and most recently to 900 million. And the legislature and the governor had asked us to work on consolidating the apprenticeship program, which we did with our K-12 partners, and they added more money. They asked it to work with you in terms of integrating the adult ed system, which we hope that's yielding momentum, and they added more money. And then on the college side, with community college career technical education programs, we've worked to regionalize the collaboration. We said we would do that, we did it, and they added more money. So really the state is making significant investments in these areas. They're all supportive of the next wave, which will be, for us, will be in the guided pathway, so that students have an easier time navigating systems. But they all serve a resource. Everything that's been built and invested in the last few years will be a resource for you in your AEBG collaboration. And I want to just hit on a few things that has worked over the last few years. Because as we talk about waves, once you go to a certain cycle, like maturity of the wave, you begin to benefit, and you can begin to predict some of the benefits of riding that wave. And so I want to share with you some of the things that we saw in the last few years. And what I would expect is that you're going to begin to see and benefit from these things yourselves. So 3 things we saw in looking backward that were helpful. First was that the development of an ecosystem of entrepreneurs. So entrepreneurs are people on the ground with the skills and experience and the relationship who are solving problems, complex problems, and using their critical thinking to help the system collectively solve problems. The second was an investment in tools to free the data. This is really important because there's no shortage of data, but how do you have data visualized in a way that's useful to you as field practitioners when you make decisions? The third is beginning to take advantage of scale, so innovations at scale. Let me just talk through a few of those. So in our world, we experimented with the ecosystem of entrepreneurs who can work on the ground, just like you are, to begin solving problems for students and the systems. We named them different things. We had entrepreneurs focused on industry sectors, so they focused on connecting community college faculty with employers, and then connecting colleges with each other. So that is resulting in better career technical education programs, more aligned with the job market. Secondly, we invested in an ecosystem of regional consortia chairs to get our colleges to be talking to each other. And then many of you have benefited because as you organize into consortia, it was easier to play point between the colleges and the adult ed consortia. And as we rolled out the Strong Workforce monies last year, you were explicitly called out in the planning process, right? And I saw joint investments, even from the Strong Workforce monies, moving into the adult ed partnerships. And then lastly, this idea of technical assistance provider. Where does the field need extra help? They needed extra help in the area of data tools, developing data tools. They needed areas of help in terms of professional development. And so you're seeing this ecosystem of entrepreneurs begin to expand. So in the immigration community, they're beginning to use EL navigators, right? So that's the same concept now beginning to expand. In adult ed, AEBG, you have now consortia, which is the equivalent of the regions. You have AEBG TAPs for professional development. You have field teams. The beauty of this is you're beginning to create connective tissue in the ecosystem so that you can begin scaling innovations more rapidly. So what are some of those areas of innovation? We talked about tools to free the data, right? So in our system, it wasn't the volume, as I mentioned, the volume of data. I remember one of our CTE deans came up to me and said, "Vaughn, you must free the data," when I first started. And I said, "Well, are we sitting on the data?" it's the data is too much data, so we began experimenting with could we actually visualize the data in the way that the field needed. Version 1.0, nobody liked, got thrown away. Version 2.0, we started hearing back feedback that this was actually useful, right? And so California went from being a total laggard in this area of data to being top decile amongst the states. I know because in the Obama administration, the White House Domestic Policy Council invited us to go share this data system with Florida and many of the other big states, that it can be done. And so, your adult education block grant will become a new tab that will be rolling out so that there's ease and convenience in the way data is visualized, so that you can make good decisions on what's happening to your students and where do you want to invest. And one result from having the transparency of data is that we can understand what are good pathways for students. So this summer, we just launched the Strong Workforce Stars. We now know which career technical education programs resulted in students having increased earning by 50% or more. Some of them are like 300%. It's amazing. You can also tell which programs have at least 70% of their students breaking living wage, right? We said we're all about social mobility. Well, show it. And then lastly, which programs have 90% or more of the students reporting that they got employment in the fields that they studied. These are all objective indicators of whether or not these programs work. And the transparency for you is now you can make more prescriptive recommendations for the students, your clients, your students, of what pathways work and have shown proven outcomes. So those are our stars. There's also investment in rising stars. So these are programs that will be too young to have outcomes because it takes a little time. But rising stars, we made investments in these programs because of labor market data. And all the college folks in the room here will attest that there's been a lot of investment made into understanding what is it that employers need? What does the labor market want or value? And all of that is available to you collectively. So here's a web page on our website with 44 pages of curated labor market reports. So they used to reside on everybody's computer. Instead, we put it into one source. You can search by sector, by geography, by key titles. Like here, facilities managers, dietitians, sub-labor market for East Bay. Very extensive. It's all for you on the website. Please use it. You don't have to build this from scratch. And then the third point I wanted to make was that now we're beginning to see innovations at scale. And why this is important is because you're part of our family. So it's all available to you in partnership with the community colleges. So let me move to the middle one, which is the new world of work. How many of you have sat in a meeting where the employers complain about lack of soft skills? Yes. Lack of soft skills, power skills, employability skills, 21st century skills. It doesn't matter what you call them. So we got sick of hearing that complaint. And the problem is so big that no one institution can solve it. So we said, as an experiment, let's stop putting out one college grant or one institution grant. Let's see if we could get 10 colleges to jump in and start solving this problem. And they did. They developed the new world of work with these top 10 areas of skills. Really interesting, like digital fluency, entrepreneurial mindset, resilience, right? There's complete curriculum, complete train the trainer, and what we asked them to do was also experiment with badging. So employers can badge when they see evidence that the student has these skills, and then the students can display their badges. So this badging experiment was recognized by Mozilla Foundation as a promising practice, and LinkedIn approached us to have students display those badges because they realized through their data that soft skills was a missing skill set and desirable skill set amongst employers. And then also Apple, who hasn't really partnered with the community colleges before, they said, we love these 10 skill sets. This is exactly what we hired for. And now we have an experiment of 8 community colleges paired with 8 Apple retail stores, where after they finish the industry-recognized credential, they go through a capstone experience with Apple, and they're given a private URL to be hired. So this is, I think we're seeing the employer react well to some of these investments, and again, they're available all to you. On the right side, the makerspace. This is an alternative and augmented learning environment, and adults, not only the young, but adults love this environment. And we invested in this at scale in order for adults to develop creative economy skills. So critical thinking, communication, collaboration, teamwork, and some entrepreneurship. We took 56 community colleges through a process, and at the end of the day, 24 are going to build out or have built out maker spaces. This is the largest scale deployment, and maker spaces right now are at Stanford, at MIT, at the top global universities. We wanted to make this environment available to all the students, and again, in partnership with your community colleges, please take advantage of them as a learning environment. It's open to all. And then lastly, on the left, there's been experimentation at scale, like Get Focused, Stay Focused, very affordable curriculum, but has it's a curriculum that appears to be working very well with regards to career planning, because that is a missing ingredient we see in students understanding why they would want to be in a certain program or how they go about certain program. So Get Focused, Stay Focused, as well as the Here to Career mobile app. So this is trying to solve the problem that students are not very aware of all of their education options, and especially the career technical education options have been off the radar. You know, most of us grow up knowing police officers, nurses, social workers, and athletes, but we really don't know health informatics or medical sonographers, right? These are strange sounding career names. And so what we wanted to do here, there's 3 ways to navigate. One is what's the earning power of each of those careers and certificates. The second is what's the 15-mile commuting radius, and the third is area of personal interest. And so we tested this in the Inland Empire, where there's a very high Latino community as well, and a low education attainment rate, and it's resonated really well. So it's free, it's on the iTunes store, and so we're hoping to have a sort of a collective work to just get career exploration out there, done more often. So again, the adult ed block grants are part of our family, and we've been seeding innovations and borrowing innovations from one area and parlaying it to the other areas. And all of this is available to you. And so many of you, we're beginning to see the innovations percolate across the board. And what you'll see is that those will be transported within your ecosystem much more easily now that things are settled down. You'll be able to see from data whether or not it's working, and also to celebrate what is working, and then just enjoying the fact that you're going to have the impact on student and on California's social mobility at scale. So really excited that we've survived the last few years with you, and looking forward to all the innovations and the great impact that you're going to have in the years to come. So thank you and congratulations.